So welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm happy to share a few Zoom reminders with you before we get officially started. And since most of you are familiar with Zoom meetings by now, I'm just reminding you that I muted everyone right now so that we avoid any background noise. But if you would like to contribute, you can unmute yourself on the bottom left of your Zoom screen at the little microphone button. And you can also view this call in gallery view or speaker view, and you can switch in between those two on the top right of your screen. And lastly, please use the chat to say hi, tell us where you're from, and also post some questions, and we'll try to get to those during the call. And that's pretty much it. Thank you again for being with us, and back to you, Susie.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. So we'll have our welcome slide to make it official that you have joined the Wellness Sector Spotlight. This is our second one for 2021. Last week, we talked to the spa and hospitality group, and this one is a little different. We put together the hot springs or thermal mineral springs group, and also invited the hydrothermal industry because we have found there's some overlap with that, especially in these days of COVID. And our discussion topic is going to be the best business move I made in 2020. I'm Susie Ellis, Chair and CEO of the Global Wellness Summit and the nonprofit Global Wellness Institute. And I'm going to host the call today along with my colleague, Nancy Davis. We have a few people from our team on the call. You've met Beatrice already, Michelle Gamble, if you want to wave. I don't know if Wendy is on. And then Nancy, over to you to say hello. I should say that Nancy is our Chief Creative Officer and Executive Director of both the GWS and GWI.
Well, thank you, Susie, and just a warm being the underlying, as it's 18 degrees with 18 inches of snow in New York. A warm welcome to you all. This, I know, is a very passionate, committed group, and I love hearing what you're doing all over the world, so I'm not going to take up any time but to say thanks for being here, and I look forward to what you're contributing.
Thank you, Nancy. And Nancy is going to be watching the chat. So if you have something you would like to share or you have a question, put it in the chat. And then, because I don't usually watch the chat because I'm trying to pay attention to who's speaking. And so she will then open it up for some other people to participate. So I want to start just before we get the discussion going with my favorite wellness economy bubble chart. So if Beatrice, you'll share your screen. A lot of you are familiar with this slide. It is a informative infographic. And I think it's a very good way for people to get a sense of what the global wellness economy is all about. You've probably seen this. It was 4.5 trillion. That was a few years ago, although you may not have seen this chart because if you look carefully, there is a new bubble that was added at the end of last year. And that is the one at the very top that says mental wellness, 121 billion. And that was the research that our researchers contributed to our Global Wellness Summit that took place in Palm Beach in November. And they spent a whole year studying this, and the timing was really very good because, of course, there's a lot of discussion about mental wellness. So that is a bubble that has been added to the collection. And so just for a second, maybe Beatrice, you can point out the thermal mineral springs bubble, and it is 56 billion. And when we first identified that bubble and that number, we were actually surprised at how large it was, because you can see the spa economy, which is right next to it, was 119 billion. So it's almost half of what the spa economy is. And the only other bubble that's a smaller bubble at this point is the workplace wellness bubble, which is the orange one. And you can see the large one. Somebody asked me the other day, they didn't realize that the size of the bubbles actually are in relation to the size of the sector. So you see that large beauty bubble, you see physical activity quite large, healthy eating, nutrition. You see wellness tourism was quite large, and we anticipate that's going to be much smaller going forward, at least when we do our numbers for 2021. our research for 2021. So thank you for that, Beatrice. And I just will mention to everyone the good news that the researchers right now are working on updating all those figures that will take into consideration the 2020 numbers. So that means we will have post-COVID or inter-COVID numbers for next year. Well, when we go to our summit this year, which is in Tel Aviv, they will be presenting all new numbers that are updated. So we will see which bubbles have gotten bigger, which have gotten smaller. Our sense is that, of course, wellness tourism is going to go down. We see also that we anticipate the wellness real estate bubble to go up because they're having a pretty good time. And I'm very interested to hear from you all because I have a feeling that, Thermal Mineral Springs, I've gotten some emails from some of you that you are very busy. So I'm anxious to hear just how busy and what you feel COVID has done for your industry, for your sector. So let's then move to, yes, I want to show Beatrice just a few more things on the slides. For some of you who are new, we have with the Global Wellness Institute a Thermal Mineral Springs initiative. And if you can show your screen, Beatrice, you will see, and there's several of you on the call today who are from this initiative. So you can see, yep, there we go. You can see it's the Thermal Mineral Springs Initiative, and they have done a lot of work. If you'll scroll down, you'll see that Charles Davidson heads it up, and Charles is in Australia, so it's in the middle of the night, so he's not going to be on today. But Mark Hennebree is the vice chair, and he is on, and we're going to hear from him. But I also want to show the initiative members, because I think that you can see how global this is. Slovenia, Austria. I see Jonathan de Vierville is on, and David Dronit, I believe you're going to be on if I haven't seen you yet. And so it's a committee, and so those of you who are maybe not part of it might want to get involved. They're doing some very helpful things, and the point is that we want to get together and help each other, because if we have a strong hot springs initiative and elevate the whole sector, that helps everyone. So that's hot springs. And let's go to hydrotherapy, because we also have a hydrotherapy initiative, and that is Don Genders as a chair and Cassandra as vice chair. And then you can go down and look and see who's on that committee. And some of you are on this call. There you are, Lassa. And so we are grateful that you're working together, because again, that working together is helping. Amy, I know you're on the call too. So thank you for that. And I think that you will find it's, yeah, I should mention that the hydrothermal initiative also is the one that has put out that great standards book. I don't know if you have a visual of that, Beatrice, but that I think is something that's of interest to both hot springs and hydrothermal. And in general, the idea, there it is, it's a guide to hydrothermal spa and wellness development standards. And that whole group got together, even though a lot of them are competitors, but what they did is they found out by working together and putting together a guide like this that can go out to lots of people, consultants, and so on. It's just helped strengthen the hydrothermal industry. So that's the whole point of this, is to just all of us thrive and get better and help each other. So with that introduction, I have emailed several of you and asked you to send me your best business move in 2020, because I figured that we can hear from you and people can learn. So I'm going to start with you, Lasse. Lasse Eriksson, you are in Norway. You can just tell us maybe where you are and tell us some of the things you did in your company that really worked in 2020 or maybe even already this year. Lasse?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm from the cold, beautiful Norway, and it's nice to connect with everyone here. 2020 was a tough year. It was not easy at all. But what we did very, very early in the beginning was that we saw that the authorities is the key. So when you think of our best business choice, it was kind of to connect with the authorities. And that was our main mission in the beginning. We started with the national authorities because the health department and these part to see kind of, okay, where is the spa industry in this pathway? What do we do? How do we go? But what we figured quite quickly was that the power of the local authorities are way beyond their normal norm. So we started to look at the local authorities because they were actually the ones, after some months, that started to kind of pivot, that it became local depending on the virus. In that city, they closed down, but in this city, it was open. So we started actually to connect more with the local health department, and they needed help because they actually did not know, because they were not used to this part. So we started to set up kind of a worst case scenario and how far we can go as a wellness industry. So we actually had six levels that we talked with our local authorities during this year. We opened in June. We still haven't closed down. So when you look at kind of marketing, it's about keeping open. That's where our revenue is. So our main mission was actually how can we keep open within the different measures. So we had 6 levels, very easy levels. We started with full open hotel, full open spa, within the parameters that we had distance, hygiene, washing, all these set standards. But we had a full open spa for every guest that comes in. Second, we went into was time slots, because we started to figure out that we needed to control if it were local guests or hotel guests, if they came from other cities or if they were locally abroad. And we also had the amount of people inside the spa. So we could actually start to pivot our opening hours earlier and our closing hours later. So we started to move these sections, but still we had a full open hotel and spa. So we still were fully booked because we had about 99.2% occupancy the first 4 months. Now we are about 84. So it's still quite well. So level 3, we chose down to only hotel guests. We closed down for local guests because we were prepared that if in this community the virus level started to get too high, we can accept, we close down everything, but still we can get people from other cities and other communities to come in. And the local authorities approved that one. So when we actually increased here in this city, we closed down for the city, but we opened for abroad, which actually worked very well. And that we saw. And then we are in level 4. That's kind of where we are now. Today we are on almost level 4, where we have even less guests. We have even more time slots, and we have about 2-meter distance. We are kind of really starting to push these levels of being safe. So we are in the mix of not having local guests, but having hotel guests, and we have a lot of time slots within this section. Our level 5 is we are mixing into the level 5 because Norway is quite shut down at the moment. Our level 5 is private saunas and private experiences. We already rent out several of our saunas privately, that in your time slot, you can book several saunas privately, which is only for you and your group. We're already into that part. And level 5 will shut down everything that you have to have a private room, and we clean the private room, and then you go back home again. So that's level 5 when you take out. And level 6 is closing down. So by having these different levels, we talk with our local authorities that where are we now? Where do we go? Shall we go into the next level? Shall we close down even more? And how does it go compared to other cities? And actually the local authorities were really, really appreciative of these parts, which actually makes it, we are now open in Larvik, in Farisbad, but in Oslo it's closed. So we have 3-4 spas in Oslo who are closed down because they haven't gotten that local communal connection. Because it's very easy to close down a country. Now we take all the spas, we take all the training centers, we But the big discussion in Norway now is kind of like, hey, there's no coronavirus in this city. Why are we closing down because that city is open? So there are these discussions, and that's how we solved it here. So actually that made us be able to pivot, that if we close down in another city, we close down the hotel, but we open for locals, and we can go in both directions. So so when you're talking about marketing strategy, our strategy is just to keep open and how we can do that within the safe part of how we do. And and it worked until now. So, and we had 3 cases of COVID patients or people who had a COVID disease in the spa or in the hotel, but we have 0 cases where it actually spread. And that's the importance too, that we have a good follow-up with the authorities, because you don't know if people have the COVID when they come to you. They are at your spa for 3-4 days. In day 2, they start to get symptoms. And then we have to then close down, send them home, go through everything, phone calls. So that system has been really well.
Lasse, thank you for that. I was very impressed when you emailed me about, the creativity. And I'm going to suggest that maybe, if you don't mind, if you share your email on the chat, because I have a feeling there are some people on the call that would have more specific questions for you. And because that, you did a lot of things. And is there any percentage of revenue, like were you last year, were you like at 30% of the year before, or 20 or 10 or 90, or what? Did you have any sense of where the numbers are? We always like to kind of push.
It has exploded. People, they are coming in, they're full. We just need to be prepared for it. We had 99.2% occupancy the first months. We had 84% occupancy the last until now. It's full. So yes.
So your revenue stayed pretty high.
Revenue stayed pretty high. The only thing we see is that kind of conference and groups in the weekdays are, of course, shut down in a big part. But then you focus on the leisure market in the weekdays, Monday to Thursday is beautiful. The best time to be in the spa is in the weekdays. The weekends are full. So actually, we kind of pivot that leisure market over. But of course, conference groups.
Thank you very much, Lasse. And if you'll give everybody your email, that would be great. Mark Hennebury, I'd like to go to you. You are, I think, in the UK, and maybe just introduce yourself. I think a lot of people know that you are with Ensana. Am I saying it right?
Thank you, Susie. Good afternoon from Europe. Yes, my name is Mark Hennebury. I'm the chairman of Ensana. We are a medical health spa group based in Europe. We have 26 properties that we own and operate, and we're Europe's largest health spa operator. 2020, well, nobody wants to look back, but 2020 was just devastating. The fact that we had multiple properties closed for extended periods of time. Susie, to your question, our revenues were down 60% year on year. So clearly a very difficult time. Really for us, it was switching a little bit more away from the medical health last year and a little more towards the wellness, because ultimately that's what the consumer wanted in the summer months when we were open. Apart from that, in terms of smaller elements that we've done, we've turned a number of our spas into COVID testing stations, and we're now switching them again into vaccination centres for the local regions in which they operate. So again, we have the medical staff to do that, and we have the infrastructure. So we're providing that service to our neighbours and our community. Looking forward, really our focus is on programs that will help people, particularly recovering from COVID, respiratory programs, where we know there are a lot of people that have been affected around Europe with COVID. And apart from that, we're just looking forward to building our business and helping people regain their health and strengthen their immunity and, you know, strengthen their mental well-being. A lot of people have had a really rough time. We know we've got various contracts with various government departments where they're sending their frontline responders to our spa hotels for 10-day breaks, because clearly they've had a particularly difficult time. But we're positive. We are looking forward. The spring, and this part of the world, the spring is coming, and you know, we hope we'll look forward again.
Mark, what has worked for you in terms of marketing, or what hasn't worked?
What worked really, I mean, when you're closed, there's not a lot of marketing to be done when you're closed. Last summer when we were open, it was short stay, domestic and local drive-to regional business. That was the market. There was absolutely no point talking about the international market. Nobody was flying, nobody was traveling, not in great numbers, clearly not, you know. Large conferences were of again, no use to us. So it's local and short distance and short stays. That's been the focus.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark, and appreciate the numbers. You know, we like to get a sense. Numbers tell us a lot.
And if I could just finish to give a shout out to all my friends and colleagues on the Hot Springs Initiative that are on the call today. So great to see you all.
Speaking of which, I thought maybe we would go to David Dronett if he is on the call from the Springs Resort and Spa in Pagosa Springs. Is he there?
Hi, Susie. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, David.
Hi.
Tell us about, you know, you contributed very, very interesting and popular video to our Global Wellness Summit. And also you helped market the Soaking Day. Tell us about that. How did that work? And was that something that was helpful for you or for any network you were working with?
Sure. Yeah, for those I haven't met, I'm David Dronett with the Pagosa Springs, Colorado, with the Springs Resort and Spa. You know, the idea for the video that was shown at the Global Wellness Summit was really the brainchild of all of the folks that are on this call from the Global Wellness Institute Hot Spring Initiative. Early in the process, as we all switched to Zoom calls, there were a number of times where people said it would be great if we could all just soak together virtually. And so I think that was really the start of it. And, you know, we were focused on our business and wanting to navigate COVID, but there was something about demonstrating to a broader audience that this diverse group of hot springs owners, operators, and enthusiasts were coming together to support each other and kind of shared common ground. And so the idea of demonstrating our diversity and the togetherness that we all shared through the COVID times and continue to, we thought that was an important message to put out there. I wouldn't say that it was, you know, necessarily about a big marketing event for us to push, at least during 2020. It's something we believe will lay the groundwork for future virtual events. But when I think about 2020 and best business decisions, for me, it's very clearly our team's focus on the associates, on our team members. When things first started to unfold, we immediately turned our focus to our team members. We set up a family pantry where we provided food, supplies for free to our team. We helped many of our kind of entry-level associates navigate the complex world of getting benefits from the government. We kept on our key staff on to support the team. We maintained daily communication with our team. And I think that paid dividends because as we began to reopen, we had a level of excitement and commitment from our team that, you know, other locations and other businesses didn't have. And I think that played out really well. And then the last thing was we bet on ourselves. We believed that as an outdoor hot spring wellness destination, we would be particularly well positioned to recover when things began to reopen. And so we actually doubled our marketing budget and really pushed out messaging into the drive-to markets that are around us. And as a result of that, even being shut down for more than 2 months and still having heavy restrictions that don't only allow us to accept 25% of our normal capacity for day visitors, we were able to match our 2019 revenues for the year.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Congratulations. Congratulations, David. And thank you for helping with that video. And I believe that video is online, available for anyone. And
It is.
on that note, I want to go to Janet Abbott if she is on. She is the president of BANA, B-A-N-A, the Balneology Association of North America. Janet, are you on? If she's not on, I know Jonathan DeVierville, you can maybe speak to it because this is a group that you've all put together. I think it's fairly new. Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know where Janet, and also I see Marcus Copeland, Dr. Copeland is online.
Okay.
He's also one of the board. Yeah, we're a small group. Balnology, it's the word for the day, for the year. Balnology, as you know, is the art, science, and cultures of baths and bathing. And again, one thing that we found in the geothermal initiative is that there are cultures around the world that different people bathe different way. The important thing though is to bathe with friends, to bathe socially, because there's something very, very regenerative. It's beyond sustainability. And I think as we're now in the age of Aquarius, this carrying that we are all water bearers here, and how this will relate, as I asked Nancy, in terms of the moonshot. I think there's a whole lot of stuff, what David is doing in terms, and Mark, and what we're doing in terms of a COVID convalescence and convalescence, how that's going to be key to the planet. So we're a small group. We're doing a little research here and there, but looking forward to encourage everyone to take a bath with friends.
With friends. Well, thank you. That's a great message. And I do agree that this whole idea with, the wellness moonshot is a world free of preventable disease, and it's getting more and more momentum. I have the new calendar behind me here, and we should definitely, with, the full moon having so much to do with tides and whatever, we should get more knowledgeable about that and incorporate that with
Yes, yeah,
so,
and there's water on the moon too. So.
Oh, well, there you go. New things to learn. I want to go very quickly to David Wickline and then over to you, Nancy, for whatever questions you might ask. But David Wickline, you spent some time doing something that sounds like it was very a good move. David?
Yes, Susie. Well, I guess there's two good moves. One was that in about 2 years ago, I purchased in Napa Valley Etna Springs Resort. It's 3,000 acres, and it'll be the last great resort developed in Napa Valley. And it has all the sustainability and wellness elements that I've always wanted to put together. So it has the National Historic Landmark Hot Springs Resort to be restored, that was founded back in the 1870s when hot springs was obviously a huge part of America at the time. So it has the hot springs element, the resort, the residential community that'll be part of it, vineyards, winery, and all of that. So that was 2 years ago. And then in 2020, the good move was my reaching an agreement with our friends at Six Senses Resorts to operate and manage the resort. And so the last half year, we've been working, collaborating together on making some improvements to our vested entitlements to restore the resort, and with the idea of being able to start construction later this year. And I suppose the other relationship there is that I met the good folks from Six Senses in 2016 at the Global Wellness Summit in Kitzbühel with Anna and Neil Jacobs. And then this past year, been working with Omar and then with Andrew Meal, who's on this call as well. So it's the collaborative aspect that Global Wellness helped promote.
Well, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. And that is, our mission for the Global Wellness Summit is joining together, shaping the future. And that was our motto 14 years ago, and it's still today. And that is carried over to our virtual calls too, because we really feel like bringing people together, and then hopefully you find each other and do business I would say, you know, the US is going to be very excited about a Six Senses in the US, and with hot springs and real estate, well, we're going to have a Six Senses in New York also, but you know, it's a brand. So I can see we're spending a year that, you know, a lot of people were home and could do a lot of meetings. As we found out, that was probably a very good route. So congratulations. And when is that going to start being built or opening? What's the time frame?
Well, we've been spending, you know, everything starts with good planning. So that's what we've been doing the last year here. But we should be able to start construction by the end of this year and then be open by 2 years later.
Okay, but hopefully COVID will be a history in our minds that we might not even, you know, we'll just have learned the silver linings. Nancy, over to you for a second.
Thank you, Susie. I've been watching the chat, and mostly it's people sharing links and, you know, kind of connecting, as well as giving a lot of kudos to those who've spoken and their great creative ideas. Heidi Lamar asked about steam rooms. And if anybody knows if there are new guidelines. They've been, you know, operating sauna, but not steam. So that was one of the questions that came up.
Okay, open to anyone that might, you know, in the answers that you sent me, the idea of regulations and education about the benefits of what you offer was very prominently and important. So does anyone want to take that question? You could just unmute yourself.
Last year,
Peter?
Mark Cohen posted a very interesting article last year on the benefits of hot springs and other heat experiences in a general health context, in particular in the impact of heat on the COVID-19 situation. And he basically argued that especially when COVID-19 is a threat, those places should be kept open because he believes strongly that they are actually able to literally dissolve the virus because of the way it's built. And yet, you don't really hear people talking about this. Everybody just seems to think about vaccines as the only solution, but heat experiences is not really a topic. Even building the immune system, everybody talks about it, but all the official advice doesn't really include strengthening the immune system. So I think Mark, if anybody would have an update, then it would be really Mark Cohen.
So Dieter, thank you for mentioning that. And Beatrice, put a link to Mark's article on the chat. The reason I asked Beatrice to do that is because after this call, we send you you know, a recording of the call, but also the entire chat. So whatever in chat, you'll be able to get the links. And you're absolutely right. Mark Cohen's article is probably one of the better things that are out there. And speaking of the chat, I want to try something different for a minute that we did during our moonshot call, I think last week. And that is this. I know that every one of you on this call has a good idea, something that works for you, or maybe you saw someone else do it. And I would like you now to put it in the chat. I want to hear from everyone. You know, what was a good idea for 2020? What is it that you did? It could be a small thing, it could be a big thing. I heard from a lot of people about the staff being important and so on. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and just put it in the chat and we'll see a bunch of them come up. And of course, they'll all be there for all of us to look at. So for everybody, even for my sister Katrine, who I know she's in Austin, Texas, and she has a business that last year did better than the year before, and it was a restaurant. So I think that you would have a good idea, as all of you would. So I think I would love to hear from many of you about some ideas. Some gyms offer co-ed steam rooms and hot tubs. Yes, and so, okay, here they come. Virtual gatherings and keeping the tribe together. I think that's that's certainly something we've heard from a lot of people. following through on planning to open even during a pandemic, negotiating, reducing our open hours, fasting retreats. That's so interesting. You mentioned that. Fasting
Yes.
hot springs retreats. I'm not really all that familiar with it. Oh, Andrew Mile, meeting David Wickline was a good thing. Good. The connection between thermal spring waters and landscapes surrounding our towns. So good. So please feel free to contribute more of that. And we're going to do some breakouts in a minute, but I want to see if Jacopa Rosita is on. She is from Chenot, and she had sent in something kind of interesting. Jacopo, are you on the call? Maybe I'm not pronouncing it right. Global Projects and Operations Manager with Chenot, Jacopo. Okay, well, if you come on later, or if she does come on later, how about Thomas Neist? You're on, and you're with Vitality Group or World. What have you been doing that has worked, and where are things now? And with your, you have a lot of locations. Thomas?
Yes, I'm here. It's me. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sue?
we can. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Thomas Kneist. I'm from the Farm at Vitality World, and I'm in charge of Mr. Tom Bauer today. And it's a very interesting meeting. Thank you so much that I can join it. And what have we done last year is the same as Mr. Mark Hennelly and David Cronin told us before. We looked very much on our stuff and on our local. The hotels, all of our resorts were closed. Now since the 3rd of November 2020, and last year also for 3 months in the springtime in March, April and May. And also our 2 resorts in Germany as well are closed. And what have we done? We improved more spaces in our springs for our guests, make private appointments and time slots for our guests. And we saw that the feedback and the occupancy in the summer months were very much more than the years before. And some of the people are coming as the area nearby the resorts. And now we are looking to the future and hope that we can reopen our resorts at the beginning of March or middle of March. Some of the people are saying it will be Eastern time. So still going on the next 6 or 8 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go into our groups, I want to mention immunity because you brought that up, and you know, we just came out with our 2021 trends, and immunity is a big deal. In fact, we have, I think, I don't know, Nancy, 10 pages on immunity, because our researcher, Beth McGordy, spoke with many doctors and industry leaders. And in general, the consumer is interested in immunity. But we have found that in the wellness arena, we have to be smarter about immunity than just throwing the word around and saying, you know, take supplements and so on. We, like for contrast bathing, things that really help strengthen immune. Amy McDonald, if you're on, maybe you can talk about what you are doing with the contrast bathing.
Well, thank you, Susie. I'm really quite surprised to see so many people that I know on the call. It's really wonderful. And I think that there are two things that I just quickly wanted to talk about. One was, you know, that we as consultants are certainly seeing more and more hot springs, more interest in hot springs. Obviously, there's some clients of mine on the phone right now. So I do think that we're going to see more of that. And I think most people think of hot springs, they don't think about the fact that they can offer, you know, that the cold component is so important. So that's the first piece. The second piece is almost all of last year, all of our new development clients were, instead of being resistant like they've been in the past, they really see the value of contrast bathing. And obviously, contrast bathing, is quite known and respected all over the world. It's just been North America that for us and our projects, we've had a hard time getting owners and or developers, right? And now all of last year with our new developments, they see the value. They're willing to put the money into the, it's a great return on investment from a health standpoint, right? So anyway, so we're just seeing that contrast bathing is finally, I think, getting the respect and understanding. And so for me, I'm really excited because, it does create more resilient immunity, right, for our health system. So that seems to be a really big bridge, and it bridges fitness and high performance, but also recovery and into spas. So I think contrast bathing is going to finally take its place within the North American market.
And thank you, Amy. And I think in general, if all of us help educate people about immunity and what we do and how it can help, that is something that's resonating. Okay, one thing we're going to do now, and I want you all to participate in this because it's important that we connect. And I know this is a large call, a lot of people. So Beatrice is going to do her magic and put you into a small group. There'll be like 4 or 5 of you. And I just want you to introduce yourself to each other. And maybe you can even get some business going. Just tell each other what you do. You're only going to be in there for about, maybe 8 minutes or so, Beatrice, 8 or 10 minutes. And then you're automatically going to come back to the group. So this is a chance for you to get to know some of the other people on the call more personally. So with your magic, Beatrice, get everybody into a group, and I hope to see you back in 8 or 10 minutes. And please get to know some of the other people, and maybe you can do some business together.
Welcome back. Hello.
Muting myself. Well, I think that was fascinating. I learned about heating cooler springs and cooling down hot springs. Thank you all for doing that. I want to hear from some of you what you learned in your groups. So just unmute yourself and share with the rest of us. You can
It was wonderful. It was wonderful to speak with other people with thermal waters places. And actually, we have already an invitation of one of our guests in that session to come here to my property. So everyone is invited too.
Good. And tell us where your property is.
My property is located in Mazamitla, Jalisco, in Mexico. It's around 2.5 hours from Guadalajara, which is the main city.
Fantastic. So we're all invited. Thank you for that. Who else can share what you learned in your group?
Yeah, in our group, this is Dieter here from Vietnam Detox. We had somebody from a hot spring in Montana, and the need to be able to explain what each mineral is good for, why, so that the staff are able to explain to the guests, why is it good to go to a hot spring? What does it do? Which minerals do what? And guests, he said, are actually starting to ask for it now. And I think that's a fantastic point. And smartening up and really being able to explain our guests the benefits in an easy to understand way, I think is something very important. And that may even attract more people if there's more awareness and knowledge on why hot springs are good for you.
That's a very good point. And that is something the Hot Springs group might want to do, is because education seems to be something needed. And if we all educate, then it helps the consumer. Who else would like to share from their group?
I wanted to just, sorry, go ahead.
So my name is Brandon. I'm with Medicine Springs. I'm in Montana. I'm the one that he was talking about.
Okay.
We duplicate hot springs from all over the world and package them for the resorts to use for people that can't come to the hot spring. But the question that has come our way so often is about why. What's beneficial about the hot spring? And there's so many people to reach that just think it's hot water. They don't understand that the magnesiums from a hot spring are transdermal, and that's an essential body mineral, that calciums help with heart rhythms, and bicarbonates help with circulation, and sulfurs are good on the skin. So it's a big chance to educate, per se, the people that most that already come, they know something, they know it feels good. They don't know why their arthritis feels so much better. So getting the word out as to what it is in your individual hot spring that has had this 200-year-long following, and why they need to come now. Or if they can't come, then we'll help you package it and get it out to them that way. But people need to know what these benefits are for.
You know, that is a good point, and I would like to just suggest perhaps you might want to rally a group to begin a way to put something together that, you know, we'll be happy to also put online so that more and more people can learn about, you know, magnesium and mud and this and that. I think it is definitely needed, no doubt about it. So I just put that out there. Who else? Maybe just one or two more people? Yes. Oh, Matthias. Matthias, please.
Hi, Susie.
Hi there.
Isn't it fascinating that we all have been taking action? The fact that we all have done things that maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, they weren't even in our mind. It wasn't somewhere, it wasn't hitting stuff, but we all took action, no matter what. But everyone is doing something, and everyone is not just saying, you know, let's sit there and wait for COVID to be over. Everyone is doing something, and that's the one fact to me.
Yeah, thank you. It's the silver lining that we are hearing and learning, and, you know, we're doing things that, you know, even our industry, you know, GWS is doing things we would not have done, you know, until maybe 4 or 5 years. We had to do it, and it's working out. So thank you for mentioning it, Matthias. Okay, anybody else? Let's have one more person that might want to share.
Susie, I wanted to just share from the call, the breakout that we were on was, you know, when we first started the Hot Spring Initiative, right, one of the main goals, and this goes back to the gentleman from Montana, was that so many consumers are confused by thermal and geothermal, right? And we did a user guide, if you remember, right? Yeah. That's still on the website that we wrote, that the original Hot Spring group, that was really written for the consumer, so that when they're going, they understand, is it a thermal, like, is it thermal water, but municipal water, or is it actually geothermal water? And then we also talked about the questions to ask if you're looking, because I think we still have an opportunity to really educate the consumer. Not that one, like, not that there's an and or, but we want, I think, right, for consumers to really understand that municipal water that's heated up or cooled has a lot of health benefits, but there's a whole other world when it comes to geothermal on the mineral content, right? So I still think we have that opportunity to continue to educate the consumer.
Thank you, Amy. So I'm going to ask Beatrice to put a link to that on the chat so you'll all get that. And Amy, would you go ahead and look at that document again and see if maybe we can update it now?
Yeah,
you know,
be happy to.
With COVID and whatever, let's update that.
I think it's 6 years old.
Yeah, so I'm sure, you know, everything can be updated. I'm going to give Nancy the last minute to talk about what she's doing tomorrow, which I think you will all be interested in. Nancy.
Thank you, Susie. Tomorrow is the Wellness Masterclass. Same time, 10 a.m. Eastern to 11 a.m. Eastern. And the guest is Beth McGroarty, who is our VP for Research and Forecasting, and honestly, the brain trust behind the trends reports. And we just released our trends report last year. The immunity trend has tremendous relation to this call, so I do hope you'll all join. It's going to be a fabulous, fascinating call with Beth, who's really, really wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to it. I hope you'll all come.
Thank you, Nancy. And Beatrice, you can also include a link to that masterclass and also to the trends report, which is 100 pages. And this year we're selling it for $85. It is well worth it with all the different trends that we're talking about. So with that, it's time to say goodbye. So you can unmute yourselves and say goodbye to each and every one of your friends. And thank you so much. I learned a lot on this call. And we'll let you know when we do another.
Bye-bye.
Bye.